Good morning, afternoon, or evening, ladies and gentlemen, Allincrypto here, and welcome back, guys, for what is going to be another jam-packed daily cryptocurrency market update. If you are new to this channel and finding yourself on my videos for the first time today, don't forget to check out that subscribe button because we drop an update just like this one around 1 p.m. UK time every single day to help you guys stay up to date with the latest and greatest things happening within the cryptocurrency markets, but also the broader markets. And that's exactly what we're going to be doing in this video. We have a hell of a lot to cover, and today is a significant day for the broader markets as we have Nvidia's earnings coming out now. Nvidia makes up a large part of the S&P and the US stock market, and there's a lot of fears around the earnings, and certainly we've seen Nvidia sell off yesterday pre-earning. It's going to be interesting to see what the markets do post-earnings, and that's all going to evolve around whether it's a beat on expectations or whether it comes out and falls short. They've typically beat earning expectations, but we will see. And it's a great reminder to us guys that are in the crypto space, and this is why we look at the broader markets, that we are correlated to the risk asset classes generally. The stock market pulling back a little bit, of course, Bitcoin pulling back. But what I want to do before we dive into anything is just to tell you guys that everything is okay, everything is perfectly fine, and actually we are still in an uptrend. Nothing has changed from that point of view. It's why we always look at the bigger time frames. We're not really interested in focusing on the small time frames unless there's a setup there that we think is a tradable one. So everything is fine. This is still a bull market. Nothing has changed. It's amazing just how fast sentiment switches within the crypto space. Altcoins, of course, are volatile, a lot higher beta than Bitcoin. Bitcoin is still that tide that rises and sinks all ships. But everything's fine, and we'll be looking at this technically to show you that. We will, of course, be starting things off by looking at the earnings that are coming today. Of course, Nvidia, why it's important, why they're such a big company, or the fact that they are such a big company and the kind of bearing that this will have on the overall market. Then we're going to be taking a look at the stock market. You are going to have a pullback in this uptrend at some point, and it's important, in my opinion, to take advantage of that, certainly given where altcoins are at this kind of stage one base going into stage two. So we're going to be covering all that, looking at some stats from MetaMask, which is showing a real increase in terms of users, which is generally good for the crypto space, probably one of the most used wallets out there. Then we're going to be talking a little bit about the Bitcoin spot ETF, looking at Bitcoin's price action from a technical point of view, reiterating that everything is fine stance, taking a look at ETH BTC, and then we will likely wrap the video up there. But what I want to do to start things off is actually play you a very interesting clip that's came out over the past 24 hours of Tucker Carlson, who essentially has tried to interview Boris Johnson. And Boris Johnson's demands and what he wanted paid in, I think, are interesting. Let's dive into that clip.
I was annoyed, so I put in a request for an interview with Boris Johnson, as I have many times, because he's constantly denouncing me as a tool of the Kremlin. He says no. So I'm thinking about getting more annoyed. So I know a lot of people who know Boris Johnson. So I reach out to them. Finally, one of his advisors gets back to me and says, he will talk to you, but it's going to cost you $1 million. He wants $1 million
What?
in US dollars, gold, or Bitcoin. No, this just happened yesterday or 2 days ago.
$1 million in US dollars, gold, or Bitcoin. Very interesting that Boris Johnson is demanding to be paid in Bitcoin. It shows just how far we've come as an asset. You know, Bitcoin has been nothing short of spectacular and a success, and this is only going to continue. We will talk a little bit about ETFs as we progress with this video. Let's talk about the pressing matters of today and what's really been weighing on the risk sector generally. You know, Bitcoin is still correlated with the stock market. Yes, it's in an uptrend against it, and we think the stock market is going to do well, which means Bitcoin is going to do even better. But there is a correlation here. The dollar is still very relevant, so on and so forth, the macro situation. But we think we've got it right in regards to looking at all these. You can see that today, on the 21st of February, you do have Nvidia. And those earnings are going to be interesting. Why? Well, if you look at how big Nvidia is, it's the 6th largest company in the world by market cap. And it makes up a real share of it's kind of one of the Magnificent Seven at this point. It makes up a real share of the overall S&P. And if we dive over to the charts now and look at what's been happening with Nvidia, which is weighing on obviously the stock market, but crypto risk generally, you can see that, of course, this did sell off. I mean, this is a weekly chart, probably doesn't do the sell-off justice going into earnings, but there's been a bit of a bid, and the pre-market is looking to open down. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if Nvidia, this actually shakes itself off. People get into this real trap when it comes to a chart that looks like this of saying, oh, well, it's going to have to top at some point. Oh, well, it's going to have to top at some point. Those same people have been saying that this entire journey to the upside. And people look at earnings and things like this. Fundamentals in some regards, are secondary to the charts, but that's my own opinion, whether that's the right one or not. You are going to have a pullback more generally. So this is leaning on risk. This is leaning on the S&P, of course. S&P made our target met, and now it's consolidating around the target that we had for it. Remember this target we had going into 2023. So we were looking at what could have been an inverse head and shoulders, a stage 1 base, and you got your stage 2. You are going to have a bit more of a pullback. Typically when the S&P does run a high, it will historically pull back. You can see that here. You can see that here. You can see that here. You know, you can see that here. You can see that here. So maybe a pullback for the S&P sort of back down into these levels is on the cards. Of course, I don't think Bitcoin is necessarily going to escape that. But to dive over to the Bitcoin chart, I just want to really it really winds me up when I see the caliber of crypto YouTube content out there, because there's no adults in the room. You know, people change their opinions on the markets within minutes, within hours of, you know, a little bit of negative price action. You don't need to be that schizophrenic, guys. Understand, as an investor, you want to buy something that you think is going up. You want to sell something that you think is going down. Bitcoin, in our opinion, is on its way to 150K. We are in an uptrend. There is far more reasons to be bullish on the market than there are, certainly when you look at it technically, bearish. The people that are bearish are basing it on, I mean, the recent one is, oh, Jeff Bezos selling his stock, so that means everything's going to crash. Okay, I mean, that's one reason, perhaps. You know, and Jeff Bezos did sell his stock sort of going into 2021 or end of 2021 before things started to sell off. That's one reason. Compare that against the reasons that we have to be bullish. And this is still an uptrend. Everything is playing out beautifully as expected. When you do break a neckline, it's very common, or a key level of resistance, that you get a retest. And that may still be on the cards. It may not. Bitcoin is exceptionally strong. People are betting on downside in an uptrending market, which means you're going to be wrong more times than you're going to be right. So yes, there is going to be a pullback at some point for the broader risk category. The S&P is likely going to lead that. Bitcoin will probably not escape that. But it's a pullback. It's an opportunity is how we look at it in a broader uptrend, and a good point in my opinion, and this is not financial advice, something I'll personally be doing, to buy more crypto. You know, altcoins are still in this kind of stage 1, now breaking out into stage 2 phase. And they're just starting to get going on their uptrend, and people are bearish. And this is why listening to the wrong people is really going to affect you in the crypto space, because they'll essentially shake you out your positions, and they shouldn't be doing that. You should have we believe in teaching people to fish, not giving them fish. And that's what we try and teach in our Patreon. Anyone that wants to get on board with that, please do check the link in the description. Huge influx of new members, and that's only going to grow and continue to a point where we'll potentially lock it off and we'll up the prices. But there could have been a bit of a squeeze here. It went the one way and then the other, a bit of indecision, but sort of equilibrium here. You still could be looking at a retest. I'm not saying that's coming. That we would certainly take advantage of that and load up. But this could fix itself. So don't bet on downside. A large part of what happens with Bitcoin, unfortunately, is going to center around Nvidia. What happens there? I think that Nvidia actually, once the kind of worry of the news is over, things will probably resume the broader trend that they're in. To sort of move on a little bit, remember we were looking at our Bitcoin ETH or ETH BTC chart. This is one reason why we think alt season is on the horizon. It's here essentially. We are looking at Bitcoin dominance rolling. We are looking at others market cap dominance going to sort of 19%. It's currently around about 11, 12. And others is everything outside the top 10. That's not going to be doing well in an environment where Bitcoin's not. Bitcoin dominance is going to be rolling in an environment where Bitcoin's not. And this is, of course, ETH BTC. And this is progressing pretty well. Certainly when we were looking at this going into this week, kind of indecisive candle, bit of a doji, or it is a doji. We looked at the historic volatility on this chart, and you can see low vol, low vol, low vol, low vol. You typically get a break, and this is likely going to happen. This could trigger this pattern that's been in place since 2017, which we'll see altcoins do spectacularly generally, certainly if the king of the altcoins is leading the pack. A little bit of unrelated news. So everything's fine, guys. Just understand the bigger trend that you're in. We did have some news from MetaMask. So MetaMask monthly active users nears all-time high over 3 million. Now, it's a good sign when the products that you use to use the crypto space are really picking up, which is brilliant. It's really nice to see, just a bit of a sort of external factor. We also have news from Eric Balanchunas, who has been really great in regards to Bitcoin ETF coverage. He is essentially saying, still haven't figured out what's happened. No one knows, given how sudden and explosive the increase in the number of trades was. 500 trades Friday, 50,000 trades today. I wonder if some Reddit or TikTok influencer type recommended them to their followers, Phil's retail army. So there was a massive increase in regards to the HODL Bitcoin ETF, and you can see this. But we actually know that this is kind of in line with how we're seeing ETFs be received in the US as it is. You know, we've seen record. We saw the same amount of volume for exchange traded products last week that we saw at the height of the bull market. Lots of good, healthy, positive data that couples in with technically what we're looking at. And ultimately, you know, to kind of finish things off, Bitcoin is in an uptrend, guys, and don't bet against that. Stop listening to these people who are trying to sell content based on fear. Fear does sell. Just understand the broader trend. We could come back to retest. We might not. Don't bet on downside in a bull market, guys. I do think this will be short-lived. I do think Bitcoin's on its way to 150K. I think we've got the kind of Nvidia fears at the moment that are causing a bit of a strife in the market. We'll see what happens. Look for the retest. Let's see what comes out in regards to earnings. And of course, you guys know what to watch. And we do have lots of altcoins that we are going to be taking advantage. If this pullback extends, we'll be taking advantage of it. If it doesn't, well, we're very well positioned as is. So that's really all I've got for you guys. On that note, I'm going to love and leave you. Thanks a lot for watching. As always, a massive shout out to each and every one of you that supports me day in, day out. It doesn't go unnoticed. And I hope to see you all in the next one. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. See you in the next.